So Sejo Syriac grew up in Malnad village in Kerala. He studied his architecture at Hassan. He runs a small practice called Little River Architects, which is based in Bangalore. I'm sure all of you know that and have been following his work in Instagram. He visits. He is also a noted educationist in the sense that he has been teaching for quite a while right now, and he's been teaching in some of the well-known colleges in South India, and has been guiding a lot of students for like almost a decade, I guess. So he has curated many of the architectural related talks in Masa, which is a very big boon for the architectural fraternity here in Bangalore. Because of the kind of people they have taken a lot of effort in bringing a kind of people from all over Asia and also abroad to our Bangalore. He organizes a lot of events in his office. I hope all of you know that. You should be following his Instagram account to find out the various events. I mean, I have missed a couple of them. It ranges from talks to movie screenings, exhibitions, and gigs, actually. So I think I will hand over the thing to Sijo. So today we are going to have a small talk. Actually, the way it started is myself, Salila, and Dia were actually roaming around Basavangudi trying to find sites for you guys. And then we were near the flower market, and then we suddenly saw this house which was like 100 years old. And Salila was the one who immediately identified that. And we were like kind of taken aback by the renovation that had happened on the outside. We wanted to go inside, but the watchman would not let us in. He said nobody was there. He asked us to come the next week, but then unfortunately we went into a lockdown and we couldn't visit. So myself, Salila, and Dia ma'am were thinking that if Sijo could present on that particular project, it would be great because you guys are also dealing with a similar setup, and we are looking at an urban project, and we are going to be looking. This is one semester where you will be kind of not putting something new in a place, but you'll have to work with what is existing. Now, I mean, without much ado, I will just ask Sijo to take over from here. So guys, most of you, it would be better for the reception of the internet if you guys could go and switch off your videos and be on mute so that we don't get background music sounds from the others. Okay.
Yeah, thanks,
yes, over to you. Yeah,
yeah,
thank
that was a bit too much.
I think principal is also here, I think.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Thank you for coming.
Hello, sir. Very rare to see you in a class.
Sir,
see, online platform gives such opportunities, very easily, one can come in. Yeah, great.
So I think, sir, I think you're on mute.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you can hear me, no? Yeah. Sir is on mute, is it?
Yeah, he's on mute. Yeah, we
Hello,
can proceed, sir.
All right, fine. Yeah. So I don't think, I will take as much time as Deepak took to, talk. So probably I'll keep it very short. And, yeah, and at any point in time, I think, just if you want me to post and if you want to sort of, come up with a question and if you want to discuss, I think we will keep it as much interactive as possible. It'll help me and help you also, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So, so I thought, I will, Deepak asked me to show this, project, which I think they couldn't go in. So, and I mean, our office is also functioning from various locations. So I think whatever was there in the air, cloud, we managed to just put it together. We didn't have the completed drawings and so on. And anyway, since you guys are dealing with adaptive reuse, I thought apart from Basavangudi project, I will also quickly show a few others later, which is also maybe not in a bigger scale, but it sort of, tackles certain other aspects of the idea of reuse. Yeah, so all of you are familiar with, the Basavangudi region. I think, this is that diagonal road, which is the Gandhi Bazaar, and what is marked in red in that right side corner is the house. So it was a 100-year-old house. I'll move on to the next slide. Yeah. So it was a 100-year-old house approximately, and the plan that you see on the left was that it had a big courtyard at the back. I think a mango tree and a lot of gardens around, and the elevation you can see. And then maybe sometime about 50 years back, I think a division between family, I think brother and sister. So they part of the property got divided so that dotted line you can see on the left side. It got, sort of cut between brother and sister. And I think brother, who was my client later on, got the right side part of it. And you can see how it is sort of cut and shifting. And then the right side extreme is what probably they've sort of continued to live from, since 50 years. And then, so about 25 years back, they felt, that was not enough. They've added another dining room and a kitchen at the back and a veranda to the, into that courtyard. So pretty much like another 40% of the existing house got added. And you can also see the, the material and thickness varied. So which means that it's, definitely a construction done at a different time. And I think they just went with a straightforward decision of doing what is most economical and practical. I don't know whether they really thought about doing something in continuation with the character the older house had. So we pretty much started from there, as you see that plan. So there was this, that old house and then that renovation, that addition, which happened about 25 years back with a veranda and a strip of garden. And right side, you see the terrace plan. As you can see that, central hall in the old part of the house was a slope roof, gable roof. And then the flat was, the old flat area was madras terrace roof. And then the new addition was in concrete. And the veranda did not have a roof. But I think a lot of life really happened, so they had quite a bit of memories about the garden and then the veranda. And a lot of their life happened there. And I think the family as such is into landscape, the business of landscaping, as a profession. So I think their attachment with greenery was very evident when we started discussing the project. So they sort of, wanted, the family moved out about a couple of years back to Whitefield. And, this was sort of lying empty for about 2 years. And then finally they decided, they didn't really want to go for a new development. They somehow respected the old house and they wanted to work along with the same line, find a tenant, something, somebody who's sensitive enough to appreciate the value of it and, take it up. So luckily they found, one of the, NGOs, APF, Asim Premji Foundation. So they were probably looking, so they have their head office in the, Sarjapur Wipro campus. At the same time, they have a city connect. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me now? Hello?
No, I had a disconnect problem. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. So, so they wanted, APF wanted a city connect office wherein they deal with a lot of bureaucrats and politicians and, other engagements in city. They deal with a lot of, educational program. So they chose maybe at the same time, they could have gone for a new building which had better parking facility and less disturbance from the neighborhood. But, I think they were sensitive enough to work with the idea of promoting a heritage building, a reuse of a heritage building. So they were willing to do it. Only condition was, they wanted a larger space wherein they could use it differently, either for a larger meeting or like a library or like maybe many people to work on top, and smaller spaces at the bottom, they would, continue to, maybe function like an office. So at this point we've got in. And I mean, normally we don't take up too much of a renovation work, but I think when I saw the project, I think it had a certain character, and then, we need some sort of a sensitivity to deal with it. I thought, okay, I will take it as a challenge. And anyway, it was in Baswangudi. I've not really done anything much in South Bangalore, I mean, I think this, people from South Bangalore probably know this, this invisible divide between North and South, and people don't really, for a lot of people, MG Road is a limit, you don't go that side and, they don't come this side. So then I thought, this is an opportunity for me to keep going to, South Bangalore, Baswangudi, and enjoy whatever, the place can offer. So I've enjoyed all the site visits, and I've been trying out different vegetarian joints, wherever I went. So, so they were very much attached to the idea of maintaining that garden, and then also having a veranda, and then adding this, additional space on top. So the moment you do that additional space on top, naturally you get a covered veranda as opposed to the open veranda they had. And we only managed when we met the requirement of the larger room at the top, we only had a smaller strip of the garden left. But I think they were very keen to keep it, and we've managed to keep that. And there is a bench there to sort of either look into that smaller strip of the garden or look towards the veranda. And then we've added that very minimal staircase at the back to go up to the first floor. So we didn't do much at the ground level. We just cleaned up, maybe did a coat of paint wherever required, or otherwise polish, and then maybe just polish the flooring, and maybe the toilets were a bit refurbished. And top, we had to do this, something which would really be sensitive to the character that we were dealing with. So I think so this is one of the section which I would explain how maybe the idea of negotiating the old and the new, and then the idea of that garden which they wanted, all that sort of came up. So I mean, you can see two trees here. Actually, there is only one tree, but the presence of the tree was very much, and that was probably one of the anchoring point of the design. So we kept one side of that large hall on top transparent, mainly because of the presence of that one branch which really came out from the back. Though the tree was slightly at the back, the presence was very visible, and so we wanted to the tenant to enjoy it. So we've kept one side completely transparent, and that tree could also be enjoyed from the veranda at the bottom. So, but eventually we've maybe spent about 3 months in refining the design, and then we've started the work, and then we were since it is sort of a slightly crafted, deep, very carefully done project, it was done a bit slow. So by the time we came up to the first floor, the wall construction, the neighbor started demolishing whatever structure they had, and they started building. We never expected, something like that would happen in the near future, and we could, keep engaging with the tree. So then what happened was that, so then they cut that branch off to accommodate their maybe 3-story building. So then, the whole idea how we've sort of designed this to be a transparent surface on the top was becoming, useless. So then at the same time, we wanted to, retain that idea of green. So we've tried this. If you look at the next section right now, that one tree is gone, and then we've sort of replaced it with a green screen. So we thought we will not get defeated by what the neighbor has done. We will have a screen which will have a creeper, which maybe in 1-2 season it would be fully grown, and you would have a green surface to look at from the space on top. So we've continued with the idea of keeping it transparent. Yeah. That was one of the moments, I think, which really we got a bit shaken up, but at the same time, we managed to hold on and keep the original, sense of the design we started with. So another thing, another larger discussion, see, functionally, it was not very complex, just one space on top and an access staircase to go on top. That's all. And, maybe a very simple benches and a space at the, ground floor. So one of the challenge was that, how do you, when you deal with a building which is 100 years old, and when you're doing something in 2020, how do you do something which would respect the quality and character of the old architecture, at the same time do something, what is to the times, so that it is feasible. At the same time, you're being true to, to the, context. You're not trying to. So one of the options was, okay, either you try and recreate the same old thing with the same set of material, but that would be pretty false. Or you use the same form, but you apply a different system of material and technique. That was the second approach. Or maybe third approach could have been, do something which really gives a shock value. So you have the old heritage building at the bottom, and then something which really shocks you, on the top. But we thought another one, maybe we will do something which is, to the current times, using the current material and technology, at the same time find a way to negotiate and be respectful of the presence of the old. So we so we did, okay, one side became glass, and it had certain system and divisions, and then the idea of roof. The idea of roof, if you were to follow the old building, principle, maybe it was a gable roof. So then maybe in current times we wanted to work with something which is more economical and more in tune with the current material and technology. So we went with this puff panel sheets, which will give a great level of thermal comfort as well. It's a sandwich layer of metal and puff material, so you get a comfort of the noise doesn't come down, and even the heat doesn't come down as much. And then that gives a little bit of flexibility in going for the slope, because a tile roof needs a certain degree of slope. But if a material like puff panel, you can work with a lesser degree of slope. So we didn't copy the slope of the tile. We went with the slope what the material required. And as you can see, this yeah, so this would be seeing it against the old, the old in the front, and then this was at the back. So in reality, you won't see it like that in human viewpoint. The structure on top is quite at the back. You will see just a tip of it. You don't see it together. So the idea of So for us, it was very important. How do we do this? So, the idea of the pillar which was required to support, I will just show it in the previous section. Yeah. So the pillar which came to support the additional, roof, so went on to, become a beam to sort of, support the roof, and then it came down, So this much is in steel, a new material, contemporary technique of putting it. So then, this we've treated like one, the roof and then the facade of the glass on one side, which is facing the tree. At the same time, the back also we created a ventilator strip. So this became one element, which is a fold, which is partially a roof and then a facade towards the that screen that we have created. And the back, it forms a bit of a ventilator on top. Probably you could see a bit of a you can get a bit of a cross ventilation and then get to see the sky a bit. And then that line came down to support the extension, and then that became a pillar in the veranda. And then so the modern part was done. So then the rest is how do you maybe do the rest, which is maybe in tune with the old structure. So then we decided we will continue the brick wall from the olden times. At the same time, new technology and quality of material allowed you to not to have a plaster. You could strip off the plaster and keep the brick as it is, and it is durable enough. So in rest of the zones, we went with this exposed brickwork. Pretty decent work, I think the contractor managed, and wherever required, strips of concrete. So this was how probably our response to doing something wherein you connect with the old, at the same time you do something which is to the contemporary time. So the brick came from the heritage aspect, and then the metal structure, the glass, and then the metal puff panel roof came from the modern times. Yeah. So this is, as I showed you, you never see it like this in reality, because that top portion is at the back, which gave us a bit of a comfort, because otherwise I don't know whether I would have really liked to accept this if it was but luckily what you see from the roadside is more of this old structure, and then the other is a little bit at the back. So this is the other side elevation, wherein you have that ventilator strip on top. And below that is a concrete band and a brick. So this is the rear side where you have the staircase going up and to a landing, and then you go inside. So this is the elevation towards the garden, and you have the pillars. Um, right. Sorry, I'll just show you this. Yeah, the pillars which went up, independently, became part of a glazing system. At the same time, it is also taking the weight, and then it actually went on to the top and turned around at the back to form the support system for the roof. So this became one wrap, and then the side and the back, the side completely full, and the other side one strip of ventilator, and then the other three sides became a brick wall. Yeah, so this is what you see from the front, the very little presence of the new one at the back. So we just did a coat of paint and added, that one strip of garden in front in line with the, just to give a sense of what is lying inside in the courtyard. So this is how, that hall, central hall, which had the slope roof, quite a high thing, and, the plastered wall, and then a bare structure with a tile roof. Probably the flooring was something else before, maybe it would have got renovated sometime back. So we just polished whatever was there. So this gives a sense of that portion which had a madras terrace roof, and then looking towards the veranda that we created. Far end is a toilet which we renovated. Yeah, you probably you on the right side, deep inside is the the dining room which they've added later, and then kitchen would come at the back, and then a window we can peep into the courtyard they've created. So this is the courtyard view. So you see these pillars going up, benches in between, and then we've created a ledge, just outside the old structure. So that forms like a kund, and then kund becomes the beginning of the steps. We didn't really want to start off a staircase straight away, so that kund became the first two steps, and then you have a something coming down from top of the staircase to take you in. So they really filled up all these wherever possible with a lot of trees. So we've just treated, it's a decking, one of the simplest way of adding a roof, like a decking sheet as a support system, and then, you have your metal frames and concrete on top. It's looking from the staircase side towards the, so you can, far end, you can see the really old part, and then this was the later added structure.
The building that you see on the side is the new building of the adjacent neighbor.
That's the new, I mean, we just popped up in like in no time, we thought we would probably, see a bit of that tree, but, that got cut, the branch got cut, and then this sort of a block came up. Yeah, but anyway, sort of it forms a backdrop for us. Yeah. So this is, whatever minimum strip we've had, we've converted into a garden, and, it's a look from top. It's actually a look, I think we took this image from the neighbor's, block, which was coming up. So you see that strip benches, that kund forming around the veranda, and then, that kund being the beginning of the steps at the left, and then you have the steps going up. So, what you see here is mostly the presence of these three pillars, mainly two and one more at the other side. We have four actually, one more on the right side, pillars which comes down, otherwise you don't see the presence of what is added on top. Yeah, so it gives a sense of how both are coming together, the right side, the glazing window, which, comes down as a support, and then you have the staircase going up, and then the brickwork continuing at a concrete band to support that top, and the screen which we added to sort of probably take a couple of seasons to get it completely green. So I think you can see part of the branch which got cut. That's how the staircase goes up. And we actually never went to this side, I mean, only when we went to shoot, we thought, okay, maybe we should try and see how it looks from the other side. We actually never designed this for the backside. We just did what was required, as a wall and a roof system and a staircase. But, somehow when we went at the back, we really felt, that view is actually quite nice from the backside, and we took quite a few frames from there. Yeah. Here you can see, how that, the bottom wall continues, but, just that we didn't plaster it. We, with the current, set of material that is available, you can leave it unplastered. It can, take the weathering.
So this tree is in the adjacent compound or is the same tree?
It is actually in the adjacent compound, but we were sort of, depending on that heavily a bit. But anyway, I think at the end also it sort of paid off. We managed to retain that probably in future when the, creepers grows, that you will still get to see that green from the space on top. Yeah. We would have probably liked to a bit of integration here. I will sorry. Yeah, maybe we would have really liked to integrate, instead of only the staircase being the element which is connecting top and bottom, maybe we would have loved to integrate this compound wall, take it along this line, so then it forms a bit more of a connected gesture between the top and the bottom. But I guess the compound wall didn't really belong to the client, so we couldn't really touch it. So we just have to do whatever we were permitted to. Yeah, this is from the landing, you deep into that space. So here you can see that, hello?
So we can see the structure very clearly on that, that.
Yeah, you can see that structure, that idea that I was talking about, that pillar which, comes up from, there, it's a pillar which becomes a beam, and then it again comes down here, so that becomes a wrap, and then see if you also notice, the rhythm that we've tried to, so I think primarily rhythm is coming from the, this, purlins, whatever was required structurally. And in a way we've tried to, if you look here also, we've sort of continued similar rhythm, so it seems like a similar system at the same time, whatever is required, one is a roof, the other is a transparency, so maybe here we played a little bit with one being a larger chunk on top and, smaller gap. So it's the same system, but, different material. One as a roof, the other as a window system, the other as a ventilator system. And then you have this, brick wall wrapping around you, and extremely simple and clean. Nothing very fancy. Yeah, so this is bank. If you look at the, as you enter, this is what you see. Right side, the glazing, back wall, then the roof wrapping around and becoming the ventilator. And then, the bottom level, this brick wall continues on the terracotta floor. It's really nice how various materials from different era, can come together seamlessly and then give you a, very sort of, I mean, the kind of roof and glazing system and puff panel, it's a very modern contemporary material. And then the idea of an exposed brick and terracotta floor is like, centuries old. So how, both can come together and surprise you. So again, with lighting, we didn't really want, anything which is very striking. We just wanted to go with the same rhythm, something very neutral, just a simple, domes. Actually, you don't, they come in multicolors. They either you get it in, black, yellow, red, green, and so on. So we didn't want anything which is very, which takes away the overall, um, sense of it. So we, another big challenge was, okay, you have this selection of material that you've done, and then, and the puff panel come with a certain color, which is not in your control. It's a factory made product. So you can only choose between gray and an off-white. So we thought, okay, we will go with an off-white because that's more neutral. And then how do you link it with brick, So we thought, okay, now probably, we should use whatever available, like maybe we should try and get the exact shade of the puff panel onto your, the beams, columns, the aluminum frames, the purlins, and also onto the, even to, I think we've got the lampshades painted, with the same shade, the same shade was not available. We've got it painted, custom made to sort of, otherwise I think it would look quite different. So everything, and even fan also, we went for a simple design. At the same time, we went for a color which is pretty much close to the color. So a modern material and its color, used to sort of strengthen itself, at the same time, find a way of engaging with the, heritage systems. This is from the other end, left side, you see that placing and the landing. And even when we did the entrance door and a window, we just, we use the same rhythm, whatever gaps we have taken for the aluminum, we have taken the same thing for the entrance door and a window, so that it looks, more integrated. You don't have a different rhythm coming. So if you look at the rhythm of this aluminum partition and then the, wooden window, it is pretty much the same. So it is the same system, working through different material and different functions. So the gap between the purlins and this, all of it somehow, finding a way to, be in sync to give you less disturbance mainly. I think one other thing is that, when you design something, you don't need too many things to make it appealing. If you find an overall harmony of various elements, I think that is a big challenge very often, and the rest, I think, the materiality and the quality of space will do its magic. So one of the main, challenges, how do you restrain yourself from, playing too much? It's a view from the corner. Yeah. So you can see the tree, from wherein we sort of evolved the whole idea of creating a transparency here, and then we've still stuck to it. You can see that bit of that mesh that we have created here. It's not very visible, but I think eventually it will turn green. They've planted the creeper. Yeah. It's another view. It's the corner. Yeah, projects like this, which needs a sensitive, care and effort, is only possible with good set of people. If you look at, to my left is Pandin, is very young, not very old from you guys. I think he's maybe 27, 28. Very smart guy. He managed to control the whole thing, get different agencies on time, very precise construction, and followed it up through, and some of his team members on the other side. I think one of the first set of users of the building, Sharanya, Nikita, and Surali, my interns. So I think before we went to handover, we went to shoot, so they also came and they were also enjoying it. I think I would say, before the honors came, I think they were the first users. And these days, I think we can't, do any project without a nice wash basin, so that's become the core of our existence now. Yeah. So maybe before I show another set of projects in brief, maybe we could open up and address any questions are around. That will be better, no?
That would be great.
Yeah.
Guys, we're open for question and answers. So if you would like to ask them certain questions, please do now.
Hello.
Guys, Seja, that was quite amazing. Thanks a lot. Guys, quickly ask questions because I am dying to ask questions otherwise.
I still remember names. If you don't, I will pick names.
Yeah, please do that, Seja. Do
That's
that,
the only
Seja.
way to get them talking.
Yeah, no, but I think they're quite sweet, and I think like
It's an icebreaker. The first person.
we've still haven't distanced very much. We've still chat. Yeah.
They're dumbstruck by the building, Seja.
No, I think it's a very simple act. Nothing to get.
I think, guys, you can switch on your videos now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Prakriti Prerna.
Hello, sir.
Hello. It's a chance for you to make a review, Yeah, very often we save ourselves from exposing our work, but I couldn't help this time, so it's your chance to go at it.
No, sir, I really like how you defined the space so well with that structure, like how the column continues into the beam and then how it then drops down. And also how you've transformed the tree character through that a green screen.
Yeah.
And you've always tried to convey all this to us in class, and we have tried to like these concepts and these ideas, and like now when we see it, we actually understand what you actually meant.
Actually, think that okay. I mean, okay. Otherwise, you used to think, okay, you're saying something and going.
No. Now it's way more clear what you were trying to tell us about following the language and.
Yeah, basically, sticking to you understand what can give what the project can offer it, and then you get something, and then you really hold on to it and make it work in all respects, so that it retains certain strength, and you're restraining from getting distracted with other thoughts. You keep to that simplicity at the same time, strengthen it to the maximum.
Yes.
I have one question. When you decided to add some of these elements, did you have to keep anything in mind about the older structure? Because it's 100 years old and it's a different material altogether. So
So there are in a project there are various parameters and forces acting. One is like economy. Like I mean we don't have the kind of freedom the students have. Nobody asks you about how much does it cost, and who will come and make it, But we have to think about, the first thing they would ask is how much would it cost? How well a finish will you get it at the certain range? So, one is the economy. So then, currently like doing a tile roof with thermal insulation and all that is like, probably not very feasible with wooden structure, So, I mean, this is one of the efficient and cheap options. You go with a metal sheet with a puff panel, and then maybe metal structure makes more sense than going for a wooden member, which probably needs a lot of bracing for a longer span. So one of the parameters is the economy, and then you try and make it work with your. Can you hear me, or it's getting cut?
No, we can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
So, so then, okay, you have a limitation, you're working with something which is more feasible for the current times with economy and, efficiency. And then you have to try and see how can you make it work, and then work with the old structure. So at the same time, I didn't want to be shy about, doing something new. Whatever I do, I want it to be visible, have its own character and presence. So then I thought, okay, I will let that roof play something, whatever it can. At the same time, use the same system for the division for the, the major window and the ventilator on top. So that part was done. So then the other part, okay, I thought maybe if I, continue the idea of a brick wall, which was there at the, bottom wall structure. So I could do it in a way, find a way to link it. At the same time, one is to, treat it the same manner you plaster it, so it looks a continuation of the old wall. But again, it's a fake thing, you are doing something different point in time. So why do you have to repeat the same thing? Be bored about what you're doing now. And these days you get better bricks, better workmanship. So it can weather it. So you don't need that coat of plaster. So then you boldly expose it. So there is a connect with the materiality, opaqueness. At the same time, it's a different language. You're not copying the same thing, but you're doing something which is more relevant and more possible to the current times. So were you saying that I was not sensitive enough, or?
No, I mean, not that, but I meant like there's 100-year-old structure. So like, how do you not affect the structural quality of the older building when you add
structural quality? So that's why, I mean, we I think all of you know BL Manjunath, the structural engineer. So his office is very close by. That's one of the reason I took it up, because when you work with something like this, you probably need more frequent supervision from the structural engineer's office, and his office is like not even half a kilometer. So that gave me a confidence to work with it. And he came and he checked the structure and he said, you can definitely load the existing wall on one side, but at the same time, when you do the extension of an RCC roof, you need another set of support, which could be a steel structure, which could well be integrated into the overall thing. So he gave that confidence, and he gave that the materiality, the requirement of the size of the the column size and how simply we can do it. One of the added benefit of having to deal with it smoothly was that the Pandyan, who was a contractor, so his story is very interesting. So I think he had done supported another contractor about 5 years back as a site engineer, and I think he was handling 2 of my sites about 4 or 5 years back. So after working under a contractor for 4 years and 2 years as a site supervisor, he felt there is something more which I need to know, and a lot of complex detailing is coming from one office called Manjunath and Company. So he felt he needs to go and figure out. So he went and told Manju, I've been a site engineer, I need to get more grip on the structural system. I'm going to I would like to work with you. And Manju let him work with him for about 2 years. So for 2 years, he sat in Manju's office, helping Manju with all drawings and structural design. So he has that experience of the site from his previous work, being a site engineer. And then he was with Manjunath, doing this structural design and detailing and, drawing. So he had that. So then I had the confidence that, there is somebody who knows construction at the same time, all the structural aspects, directly through Manju. And so when I've told client, I'll send you a contractor, I told him, you look at him and then at the end of it, don't tell me he's too young to do the job, So, but he was quite brilliant. So I think all that, gave me the confidence to sort of deal with it. And I think, so they could sense, whether the building could take the lot of what we are adding on, and then whatever additional support is required. So there are structural engineers and, support staff to help you with that. And I think they helped with the correct, decision of the pillar size and beams and so on.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I had a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Jayanagar and Baswangudi, we see that houses are built very close to big trees. Over here also, you have a mango tree behind this house. What did you have to keep in mind when you were building so close to a tree like that?
I mean, as a practical, are you talking about the positive part or the negative part?
No, in terms of architecture, you thought about how
I mean, I think the whole thing came about from the tree, like the tree branch was sort of covering the entire, if that branch was not cut, maybe we could have seen that, that green from this window. So I think the whole design, quite a lot of it came from that tree itself, you know. And then, so that anyway, the other structure was close to the tree, and I think it was not really disturbed by the tree and its roots. And anyway, we were only using pins as columns to, you know, go down to take additional support, and trees probably wouldn't disturb them as much. So structurally, it was not an issue. The tree was not disturbing, and actually, we started with taking advantage of the tree, and later we managed to somehow, you know, maybe that opportunity was lost on one side, but we're trying to save it, you know, using a screen. But you know, in this view, you can see the tree from here, you know. So one angle you see the presence of the tree.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
Teacher, I have a couple of questions.
okay.
The first one was like you talked about the structure, coordinating with the structural engineer, and that person being a very important part of this process. How about, were there any other significant people that, I mean, did the heritage consultants, did you have to consult with people from the heritage architecture zone or whatever? And what role did, and on a more practical side, what about the permits and dealing with authorities and all that stuff? Was that a concern at all? And my second question is,
no, you did
how
please,
does
fourth, not second.
as long as you don't lose track. Very small
I will ask
question.
you, what is the second
problem.
one?
The second, fourth question is about how the building kind of, since this is relevant to our studio, because we are working with architecture in an urban design context. So this particular structure obviously really brings a lot to that corner. It's very noticeable, right? We just walking down there and we saw it.
Yeah.
More than, and other than the visual addition it makes, contribution it makes, how does it engage with the surrounding? Does it engage with other activities around? Is there any deliberate attempt to do that?
So I think,
by APU?
Yeah, so I will start with the last. It's easy to keep track with that. So I think, you know, this space is taken up by Asim Premji Foundation, you know, and you know, Wipro and Asim, you know, they are one of the, I mean, very few Indian business houses which are into any kind of philanthropic work. So this very function of the building is to sort of, I think, you know, their wing which deals with a lot of government schools. It is their contact office here to have meetings and then maybe to engage with city officials and so on. So apart from that, you know, actually, I mean, I know the head of this space here. So I was actually talking to him, and you know, they're very open. So they were telling the client, you know, the client consists of, you know, two sisters and their parents. The parents are quite old, I think maybe in their late 70s, can barely walk. But you know, since the parents were into that landscape business, so they are the ones who took the initiative of, you know, greening up the place with all the plants in the ground. So the APF guys were telling them, you know, you guys should not stop coming here. You know, all of the family should come here every weekend. And anyway, we don't function during the weekend, and then come and enjoy it. You know, well, you need to call other people. You know, you could do that. You know? So they could keep their contact with the Basungudi, and wherever they need to used to buy snacks from, they could still, you know, bring them and, you know, get people from the neighborhood. So that way, I think, I mean, it is coming through the program. I don't think it was my decision or, you know, my contribution. It was the decision of the tenant to sort of let the client use it. At the same time, I was also telling them, you know, like, you know, maybe even I would like to use the space, you know, I mean, whatever I was doing in my office as smaller gigs, maybe this is a larger space and it's a larger, nice context, and, you know, maybe a space which I have designed. If you guys let me, I will also, you know, like to do events here, you know, maybe it could be to do with architecture, it could be to do with the neighborhood, you know. So, and they were quite open. They said, yeah, you can. And they also have a nice wash basin to wash before you walk in.
Yeah. And the second,
yeah, so that is the last question.
Yeah.
Are you talking about technicality or a cultural question?
You mean when? No, I mean in general, were there other people involved? Because this is obviously a heritage structure too, right? So are they, I mean, in reality, I'm talking about the pragmatics of dealing with something like this, a project like this. I understand that the client would have been the main active person with whom you would have engaged, right? But were there other people that you kind of talked to, felt the need to talk to? And are there any specific set of regulations for such structures in getting permits and all that? It's more of the pragmatics.
Hello, Sijo? I think he dropped out, no?
There he is.
Hi,
Yeah,
hi,
Sijo,
yeah.
did you hear my question?
Yeah. So,
Okay. Again, he's gone.
with
Sijo, your voice is breaking.
I think there's a problem with the internet connection.
Yeah.
hello, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sijo, you can
Okay.
switch off your video because I think that's taking a lot of bandwidth.
Any consultants for the heritage aspect? You can hear me?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we can.
And so we only had a consultant and Pandin, the contractor.
Sijo, your voice is breaking, so it's fading and coming back.
I think it's the net issue, I think. So, hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you now.
He completely fell off the grid.
Yeah, should we call him? Will you call him and tell him to switch off the video?
Did you lost me somewhere?
Yeah, and we lost you. Now you're back.
Yeah, so I think I've told so since Pandin had worked with a structural engineer before, so he could walk into his office, meet his seniors and clarify some of the doubts he had. So that made my life quite simpler. I didn't really have to engage at a day-to-day level or whenever it was required. So it was quite smooth, and we did not have any crisis at site.
Okay. And so other things the client took care of in terms of permits and all. I don't know. I guess since I've not practiced as an architect, would there be any role for you in that then, or are there any separate set of rules for something like this? Is the question.
Salila, can you repeat that question again?
Yeah, it's basically, Sijo, it's like you had the structural consultant. I was wondering if you had other consultants too, and like heritage consultants or whoever, if there's anything like that. And the thing was about permits. How do you go ahead building something like this or building around something like this? Is it different from any regular design, any building project? That's the question.
How different is it from building something new?
Yeah.
It is always because when you do something new, you don't have the existing you don't have anything existing in the site. Maybe there are other contexts you need to deal with. Here, I mean, you can't escape it. You have to in a way connect with it and find a way to deal with it. So But at the same time, we were also not very shy. We did what a contemporary solution would be. At the same time, we found a way to connect it with the old.
Oh, yeah.
So we've also managed to express ourselves in a contemporary terms, at the same time find a way to link it. So I mean, it was not very different in that sense, apart from the fact that we had to anchor it. Yeah. And what was the question about the client? I did not get it correctly.
No, so I guess, yeah, I was talking about, I won't drag it too much. I'm sure the others have questions too.
Yeah.
It was about, is it difficult? I mean, is it different from other projects in terms of building it itself? As in, do you need, because you're working with an old structure, does the permit, you have need building permits and stuff like that? Does it work differently?
Yeah, I think, the client, they've been living there for 100 years. So somehow they had the confidence they could deal with, authorities. So I did not get involved in dealing with the authority for permission.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Which I think they took care of. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So they took care of all of that.
They took care of the authority. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, guys?
Anybody has question? Okay, I have a couple of questions. Sorry, there is something going on in my adjacent street, so some huge drumming is going on for the last half an hour, giving me a big headache. Actually, that's why you hear noise from the background. So yeah, so there is, like, one question is, I worked with Manjunath for quite some time. So in many of his projects, you always see, not all projects, but of course his solutions keep changing with respect to the context at that particular place.
Yeah.
Here, if you see, he has used a portal kind of a thing, that structure that you're talking about. Actually, he uses this at many places. But if you look at this one, this is kind of an asymmetrical portal which is happening in terms of the section, in terms of the height.
Yeah.
So kind of an asymmetrical portal which is happening in terms of the height. One side the column is all through the ground, the other side is actually sitting. And if you see the existing structure, partly it has a Madras terrace, and on top of this is where you have loaded that whole thing, correct?
No.
Is that correct?
No, see, what we've loaded is on the behind portion, which was added later, which was a regular slab, that living and dining. Yeah, so it is not to the 100-year-old structure; it is next to it, but partially loaded to the structure which came up 25 years back.
Okay, but that is still like 20-25 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, partly it is loaded on the building, partly it is actually sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
So I mean, this approach is actually coming from because you do not have that space to put up another column on the other side, or was it a conscious decision which was taken in an architectural way, saying that it needs to be?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there is, that wall is on the edge, so there is no way you could, do anything. There is no setback area, so it is, abutting the side edge. If at all we wanted something, we probably, we'll have to dig holes, into the space and do it inside. But I think Manju came and had a look at it, and he said, that wall will take the load of it, not a problem. So we had one beam before we started the brick wall, and then we had another beam at the lintel level, before that portal frame started. So I think somehow that those two beams somehow helps to distribute the load evenly. And he felt, that was enough.
Yeah. So my second question is, in terms of texture, in terms of what is seen and what is not seen, and your decision to keep the brick walls exposed. I mean, there's this one shot where you have taken. Does this actually come from the site, or is it a conscious thing that you have done through design to make this juxtaposition between what is brick and what is steel and what is new material? Because there was one shot where I see you have taken the shot from the next compound, and then you can see the existing compound wall, and the plaster is completely worn off. You see that old brick, and then you can see the complete, and then you can see the new structure on the top, and then it's completely a new brick facade, and then it kind of has this relation and this. Maybe it's done intentionally, maybe it's done unintentionally, but there is this dialogue which is going on in that particular shot. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, frankly, I think I mentioned this. We never went to this side. No, actually, I didn't really design it for an elevational or an aesthetic kind of thing. It was purely a systemic thinking. Like what is required structurally and whether it can, and if there are ways to integrate a roof system to a window system to a ventilator system, and then whatever required as an opaque surface. So we've never, negotiated with an elevation. We never really tried out for an elevation. It was not really sorted at that level. It was more of a systematic level of system, which somehow maybe only in terms of that rafter gap and then the window gap we've tried to match it. Otherwise, we've not really, like, frankly, I never, bothered. I never did a backside elevation. Maybe we did for technical reasons, but I never went to the backside, see it together. I only went to, when we went to shoot this, we went to the neighbor's property, we took permission, and then, we saw this. So after seeing this, I realized maybe there was a possibility of, using this old brick wall, and find a way to engage it with a new and, take one line incline. But anyway, it is probably not the client's property. It is belonging to the neighbor. So, so it was not an aesthetic kind of a decision. So it was more systemic, I would say. And just that it really worked.
Okay. So but why why did you choose to expose the brick wall?
See, what I realized from my interactions with the client is that, they like nature, they like, the plants, and so, and then, the building, the existing building also had that terracotta, presence of the terracotta roof. So then I was looking for a way to make a link with it. And then, I thought maybe, that the idea of brick and terracotta flooring would be a way to connect with the old structure.
So what is existing?
Yeah. What is existing? Yeah. So it came more as systemic thinking. I don't think I was, of course, the color was in my mind, that it would gel with the green. But I think it was more systemic thinking than an aesthetic approach.
So, and what was the reaction of the client when you actually proposed?
I think they're super happy here. So they were considering, like whether if they can come back and stay here.
Sorry.
Whether they can come back and stay here. Right now they stay in Whitefield and has rented it out. If they can come back and stay here.
So what was the reaction of Asim Premji's foundation to that?
I think they're super happy. I think initially they had a bit of a disturbance because I think, since it is a bit of a careful process, so the deadline was getting extended a bit, So initially they were a bit irritated, but I think when they saw, like things happening with the brick wall coming up, the overall aesthetics, I think they were willing to wait, and support us. So like a lot of things, frankly speaking, the client, all the lighting on top was supposed to be from the Wipro Foundation. The client was not supposed to given. So then I interacted with the APF guys and said, I know that it is in your scope, and can I select whatever you want to do? He said, yeah, very well, you can do it. So, but then the client told me that it's very difficult to sort of engage with them for all financial terms. So they have their own process of work order and certain set of vendors. So it's a nightmare to get into it. But find a simpler way. So then I told them, okay, I will take it from the vendor, the tenant scope and put it in your scope, and maybe you'll have to pay a bit extra to put these lights. But in any case, I would like to have a control over what is coming here in terms of the lighting. So that way, I think between them, they're really very collaborative in understanding and helping us out with what was required. Yeah.
Because when there was, I have seen the Rajesh Flying Elephants proposal to Asim Premji's foundations, the schools that they're building all over the place, basically, and that was supposed to be an exposed brick at the end of the day, actually. Yeah. And then suddenly, in some of the meetings, I think there was too many number of stakeholders, and then there was a problem, and then they went and painted the entire thing white. That was a highly insensitive approach to what Rajesh and
I know, I can understand, but here we've never interacted with APF initially. It's only at the end when it came to the selection of light I requested them, And actually, the man heading this team in this space happened to be Rajesh's niece's husband. So,
Okay.
so there's some sensitivity there as well. So
Okay.
I think we had no such issues.
Okay, great. Yeah. And there's one small technical question that I wanted to ask you. So if I look at the interiors, you actually see these electricals which are completely concealed, and you can just see the box and the plate on top. Actually. How did you manage to? I mean, generally when you see a brick construction, you always have this concrete band and the electrical is actually hidden into this concrete band, and then you see the plates coming on top of it. But in your case, you have a full brick wall, and then you have these things coming up. There is no evidence of chasing or anything like that. How did you do that? I mean, how was it?
I mean, I think that's a secret. No, I mean, see how if we can run a course, without being physically present, we can also do electrical lines without anything being present, completely wireless.
Tesla.
Yeah,
you have to bring Tesla.
Yeah, but actually, what we did, I think it was so I used to come to RV, and then, like after college, I would, drive through that, what is it, Greennagar, Greennagar, and I used to frequently visit the site, so while that semester was on. So I think, the contractor was there and the electrician was there. We were always discussing how to, find this way to, do this conduiting without, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
So what we've done is actually we have done the conduiting at the back. Okay. So we've chipped the bricks, we've done the conduiting at the back, and we've done, one band plaster, which is 3-inch thick at the back.
Okay.
So that's what we've done, and wherever possible, we have taken all the wires behind the purlin, above the purlin, behind the rafter, or if there is a window frame, that wooden frame, and then the brick wall, so that in between gap, we have taken it. So as much as we managed to, do without the chasing, wherever it was required, we have done it at the back.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so guys, any more questions? Can we proceed to the next?
I'm sure there might be more questions, no, Kaushik?
Janish, if you're not questioning, yeah, thanks. Guys,
I would like more questions.
Kaushik is ready.
Okay.
No, I don't think I had any questions. It was a beautiful presentation. I'm not ready with any.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, you can, ask me.
Yeah, sure.
Anybody else?
I think we will proceed to next. We're running short of time.
Yeah.
Okay. So how much time I have for the other one?
You have another 20 to 30 minutes.
It's, you can see it or? Hello?
No, we are not able to see the document. It's just showing that it's shared the screen.
Okay. Now?
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it, right? Fine. Yeah. Yeah, so this is, I mean, since it was about reuse, so some of it is reuse, use, pre-use, different terms. So I thought I'll, quickly share some few more projects. So this was actually, a small tiny pad, as small as probably it can be, the span is about 13 feet by 20 feet. I think probably this is going to be the new urban reality when people probably have realized that they really don't need to be in cities, and they could do most of their work online, so they could go back to wherever remote areas and continue to live there, and maybe at the same time, whenever essential to come to city and keep a small pad as small as this, which does everything. You have a sort of a bedroom, maybe a TV console, a study space, a wardrobe, kitchen, and a small dining. There's a collapsible, you can open out a dining table there, and then you have a kitchen and a toilet. So it's a couple which decided to move back to Shimoga. I did their house, and then they've said, okay, when they come to Bangalore, they want a small pad. So their fathers had given them a plot in Sanjay Nagar, and they had made a shed. Both of them were artists, so they wanted a larger shed to work and store their work. So they had made a 20 feet by 80 feet long, simple shed, an AC sheet roof shed, which had quite a bit of height, I think about 16 feet. So they thought instead of looking for another plot, they would make this pad within that. So we use one bay of it, 13 feet by 20 feet, and jammed in everything, created a mezzanine, since the height of the shed was quite a bit. So that's why you see the steps, and below that, they continue to use it like a storage space. So, in that sense, it is a regular shed which is, created a small pad for a living. So this is what you see: bed, study space, wardrobe. That's so, since it's one tiny space, we didn't, like if you put all elements required in a house, it becomes too much. So then, we thought, we will make one thing, one element, and, that would form everything. So the study table continues to become a wardrobe. And then if you can see these, lines here, so you can collapse this, pull it out, fold it out, and it becomes a dining table. And then it continues to become the kitchenette. And then it turns around, and it goes to that toilet. And since we were doing the mezzanine, so we didn't want too much material. So we just use one material, white wall of the shed, and then the flooring was in metal frame, and we wanted to use bamboo board, but I think they were not convinced enough, so we went with rubber board panels. So and then the same material goes on to become your plate table, your wardrobe, kitchen, study table, everything. So you just see white, and there's just one material. Otherwise, it becomes too many. If you have its own presence of every element of a house, it becomes too heavy. So we just managed to keep it very light, very simple. So this is another one. It was a museum. Some of you probably would have seen, like on the way to Mysore, Ramnagar, folklore museum called Janapataloga. So there are a lot of collection. One gentleman called Nagegowda, he collected, but he didn't really have resources to set up exhibitions. So I think he had one circular building, and then he had kept some display randomly. It was not properly done. And then his daughter, when she became the managing director, so he asked us if we could do something. So we had a hall, a circular hall, which they were using for various functions with a very strict pattern of radial columns. And naturally, when you look at it, a typical way of doing a museum here would be, you take that circular path, you go around, you go inside, and you finish your display around that path. But, I was not very comfortable with it. I really wanted to break the flow of, a museum thing, because people who come, even if they're in a larger groups, each one would like to engage with the exhibits, with different level of attention and engagement. So maybe the time that each one spends on one exhibit is very different. So that idea of, one flow doesn't work. So it should have freedom to, take different route. So we did something more like a maze in a circle, and incorporating all the radial columns. So now you look at it, and somehow that radiality is somehow completely gone. So you made a maze, and these and they didn't have funds, so we made civil, brick and brick walls with niches to display, and these walls will go up till 7 feet. So the columns will resume after 7 feet. So at the eye level, you don't see any columns; you only see these walls. And then we made niches onto those walls and made them into platforms of display either on ground or at the various levels. So you've somehow changed the whole dynamics of space itself, at the same time make it workable for one-side avenues. You can see the view of the partitions with niches and platform, and then the building, the original building and column continues above 7 feet. So till that level, you create a different world altogether. Yeah. So wherever there was a wall, so we made a block around it, and that became a place where you could have your display, because that would be opaque and you can't have a niche there. So wherever the column came, it became a space where you could have a all the information required. And we've used the existing niches along the circular wall on the periphery. So it gives a very interesting, you see layers of exhibits from one, space. It doesn't form that typical, that radial space anymore. Moving on to another one, it was actually, we didn't really do much here, but it was more of an exhibition design in one of the galleries in Delhi, Ladusaraya, gallery called Exhibit 360. So I put this project just to talk about, Delhi and their way of reusing. So I think a lot of Delhi also has a lot of urban villages. I think the first one which sort of got into prominence was Hoscos in Ladosarai. And then I think Shashpajat is also sort of converted entirely. And then there is something else which is being converted, I think Saidul Ajib. So these were villages where I think, mostly the villagers were staying there. And then I think for most of the creative people, since their source of income was less, so they felt these villages, they could, either rent out or buy property at a cheaper rate as opposed to the mainstream city. So that's how most of these creative people end up going there. And then it slowly became a hub of art. Galleries started coming up, studios started coming up, boutique shops have started coming up. So Ladosarai is one such area, and one such old house got converted into a gallery called Gallery 360. And so this was for a show for an artist called Vibha Galhotra, and she works with mostly environmental disaster, and she wanted to bring in a lot of construction debris and a lot of waste pollutant materials, and give it a display. And then since the old house had a lot of levels and different scale of space, and again her exhibits items were too many and then different sizes, shape, so she didn't have a control. So then I think we pitched in to sort of give her a solution. So the light gray you see in the center became, we've sort of paved it with regular construction blocks to create a platform, and then all this like a wave of sea, all the debris are kept, and in between there are islands of displays. She wanted to bring in that impact of debris. I mean, it is right now you see it outside your house, but imagine they come inside. Yeah. There's one of the displays and visitors. Yeah, with that I move on to another. This is Phoenix Market City in Velachery, Chennai. So they have these spaces which they adapt and keep using it in different ways, mostly the lobby space. So I think, and depending on the season, they sort of do it differently. So during Diwali time, they wanted a children's library with Mahabharata being the theme. And the lobby was quite empty, but at the same time, you had a lot of shops from different brands. So somehow we have to create certain level of quietness to put these modules of books at the same time, some seating facility. you can see all the disturbance around at the background. You know, you have Jockey, you have, you know, what are the other ones? Mocha and so on, Mochi and so on. At the same time, you know, there is a quiet corner for kids to come and engage. So it's a way of creating a pause in a very busy environment. And then they're able to focus. So I think we've created these heights to match these, you know, the children's level. So they feel a bit private and a bit secluded, and the visuals from the around doesn't disturb them as much. You know, very intense interaction between a grandparent and a kid maybe. So this was another one. I think Kochi, I guess most of you have been there, I think, you know, a couple of, maybe this one, 2016. So that is a classic example of how entire town got really, you know, adapted for various things. And I think a lot of, it was a trading house center. And once the trading shifted to Ernakulam, so Kochi had a lot of this empty godowns and so on and business houses. And I think with Binale coming in, I think they found, you know, these are the best spaces to, you know, occupy and then convert it into, you know, spaces of art. So within Aspinwall, there were many locations. So we, most of the building they used as it is for the displays, and I think there were car sheds along the periphery which they wanted to convert into a, you know, curio shop, maybe a, you know, information kiosk. So we did that. So this was, I mean, if you can imagine this, you know, it was completely dilapidated. The half the roof were missing, the floor was not there, walls were half broken. So we've just cleaned up, did very little, did another layer of flooring and then created a counter and some graphics to convert this into an information kiosk without spending much. So this was again another car shed, again half in bad shape, renovated, you know, created a nice display system and a graphic to attract people and some counters of interaction. You know. These are knocked down. You can see they don't get this property for a, you know, long-term use. So they only get it for that 3-4 months. So after that, they'll have to remove it and go. So all these are like movable system. You can, you know, knock it down and take it back and maybe bring it back with certain variety next time. Yeah, flexible shelving systems, very neutral, cheap plywood and paint, you know, glass shelves. From the market available bracket systems for storage and so on. So this is actually, you know, something I would term as pre-use in the same Phoenix Market City. So they were starting another mall, which is a high-end mall called Palladium Mall. And when they were inaugurating the mall, you know, a lot of the shops were not open. And so there were interior works were going on and they were actually covered it with some, you know, printed flex. At the same time, when they were opening and they were inviting a lot of guests, so they wanted something to happen in those space. So that's why I called it pre-use, before the designated use really happens in a space. So they wanted to create something which could work. So I called it pre-use. And there was a curator called in to create a exhibition on the theme of the collaborations between India and France. And we've helped it with the display system and the layout. So at the back, you can see all the flex each shop guys have kept in. So you can see all the flexes where all the interior works are going on at the back, and we've used the lobby which was completed by the developer to, you know, create a display around. So when the inauguration happens, there is something interesting happening till the, you know, shops are open. So yeah. So this is another house, maybe similar time period as Basavangudi. I think it was a Gaikwadi house in Baroda. So we did a couple of projects in Baroda. So then I think they liked it and they called us. It's an old house. I mean, if you see the leftmost is the original plan, and then we were asked to add one more bay, which could differently work in the ground floor and first floor. So this was the original plan. So we've added that one bay, you know, that last living bay. One bay we've added, which became an additional family space. And then the dining got a little more bigger than before. And they've got a veranda for the dining and also a sort of a utility veranda for the kitchen. And on top, the lady, I don't know if you know, her name is Nilima Sheikh. She is very well-known painter. And all of you should check. I think her sense of colors and aesthetics is something really very delicate. So on the top, 214, that entire 2 bay becomes 1 bay.
Hello, hello.
Sir, we're not able to hear Sijo, sir.
Sijo? I think there is a problem with the internet connection. Sijo? It's fallen off the grid. Let's just wait for him for 2 seconds. Sorry, for 2 minutes.
Guys, do ask questions. I think it's showing us amazingly generous and showing us a range of projects. And as I said, it's like a lot of reuse, right? And also in both older contexts, older buildings and new malls also. So I think it's lovely. I mean, how do you organize or create smaller, meaningful spaces within big boxes? I think that's pretty cool. Now's your time to think and ask questions. Deepak, should we try and call him?
Yeah,
Or
let
he
me.
must be trying, no?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Fine, screen share.
Yeah, he's back.
You are here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So this was the ground floor. We've added one more, 1 bay, which is number 2. 4 was there. So it became a study, and 2 became an additional living space, and 3 and 1 became a little broader dining room and a veranda, and then kitchen and utility and its service space at the veranda. The upper level, that number 1 is a larger studio for the artist to work, which needed additional height because she works with 12 feet high, canvases. And 2 is a sort of a meeting space. 3 is a deck veranda to go out. 4 is a pantry. 5 is a toilet. So I think this peripheral 3, 4, 5, which doesn't need a greater height, we've added a mezzanine, which became a library and a storage. So 1 and 2 continues to have the larger height, as you can see. And the height variation from the existing structure, which is 10 feet, and then the R space, which is 16 feet, that gap 6 feet gives that, great amount of natural light from north, which is very critical for an artist to work with. On the left side, you can see the, entrance to the veranda and then the storage on top. Yeah, there is pantry, toilet and a library on top. And the other right side is where you see the drapes. It is the door to the balcony. At the same time, on top is the storage. And yeah, so I think there is one more if there is time to show a set of collaborations and people who are helping and colleagues and so on. Present, past team. Yeah, so if you have time, I can show another few more slides of another important one.
Yes,
or,
please.
Yes, sir, please.
Sure, sure, sure.
Need to access it. Did you see it? Can you see it?
No, the screen sharing has not yet happened.
Not yet happened. All right. So I think I need to. Yeah. Can you see now?
No.
So, screen share.
Yeah, it's started now.
Yeah.
Start.
I mean,
Just
I
a
can't
minute,
really reuse because it's quite an important site, you know. So I think most of you know Sundar Nursery in Delhi.
We can't see the slide.
Okay.
Ma'am, are you able to see the slide?
No, no, I'm not able to. I just started the slideshow, but it didn't show the slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, now yes.
Now you can see, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't term it, I mean, terming it a reuse will be sort of a, you know, being very, you know, disrespectful. I really don't know what term to use, but anyway, I will talk about it. So it is Sundar Nursery. Most of you know, it's one of the, you know, prominent UNESCO heritage spot in Delhi. It's from the Mughal period. I think, I don't know, 11th century, Salila, or 11th
And I
century
don't
or
know.
yeah, so one of those centuries, so 11th, 12th century. So it is under the care of Aga Khan Foundation now. So one of the artists, Seema Kohli, managed to get permission to exhibit some work in one of the most oldest, you know, location there. So, see, it's a lotus pond, and they believe probably it is only the one surviving lotus pond from the Mughal time. And you know how a lotus ponds were important to Mughals. So she managed to get permission to use this, and she was working with a different stream, you know, theme of things. I think it was she was working with an idea of statues of yoginis, and small in size, 1 feet wide and maybe 2 feet high, and about 64 of them. And she wanted to display around this, and she had no clue. So you know, we've sort of worked with the around a circle. We created this hexagonal, you know, sort of formation, which is sort of, you know, broken in parts. Created a very simple structure with metal frame and bison board with a dip in center for, you know, she could put these exhibits inside, and with whatever graphics goes on to the thing. So some of it we've tried to work with the geometry of the, you know, the Mughal geometry of the circle, at the same time whatever, you know, that idea of a hexagon, and created these you know, systems. And I think even the color, we wanted a neutral color, also something which probably would connect with the water. We managed to get bison board, which would support that. And then since it's neutral, you know, that sculptures in sandstone is more prominent in nature. And she had another set of disc, you know, which she was using for printing on display. So we created a simple, hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sito. There was some
Yeah, so then we created a simple box with like a jewelry display, wherein she wanted to display some of those zinc plates which she was using for printing. And it's an outdoor display, so we had to protect it. So we created a simple system to, you know, cover it with glass and a sense of lighting if anybody comes in the night. That's a detail of, and we did a transfer, we did a screen printing on these boards directly, and which could take all the information required. Yeah. So, working with something which is done in 11th century. So, I can't really call it. We were reusing it. It's somehow we had the fortune of engaging with it, and there was some opportunity to do something, and we did this. Yeah, that's it in terms of work. And any questions, clarification I can take.
Guys, time for question and answers. So you can put your videos on. So we are waiting questions. I have a couple of questions, but I would like the students to go first.
Guys, quickly. Kaushik, Falguni.
That's the first phase popping up.
Prakriti. Kaushik.
I think if you start, we'll follow with some questions.
Oh man.
I think Sarnik wants to ask some questions.
No, sir. I am.
It's really quite beautiful. I mean, I like how quietly these things intervene in places without. They're not very loud interventions. They sit very quietly within whatever context they're sitting in.
Yeah.
But in terms of questions, I'm not really sure what I want to ask yet.
So I could respond to what you've said, that things are sitting quietly. You're talking about various projects, right? There is a certain level of quietness.
Yeah, like this one and Janapada Loka and all of these other.
Yeah, so mostly I think my take as an architect is that, I feel, architecture is a backdrop for a play. So you're creating a backdrop for life to happen. You're not the architect, or architecture is not the primary, event. Primary event is life, what people or, whatever beings do. So if you know that position correctly, then it's quite obvious that you would take that role and you let other things, be more prominent. That's my take, but there are other views.
Others.
So I have been to Janapada Loka, the Kochi Biennale, and I think I've seen the Humayun pond from very far away. Okay. Now, in all of these, when you say that you thought that architecture was a backdrop, but you also say that you're not shy about your interventions. How do you manage to be so contrasting but still have a well put together design?
So I should have waited for you to, your question before I made that statement, I think. You're smarter, Sam. Yeah. See, if you look at what I've done in Kochi, Biennale, if you look at that, that curious shop, and then what is done in Janapada Loka or in Lotus Pond, I think the Janapada Loka and Lotus Pond is more neutral. And very, especially Lotus Pond, you're dealing with something which is how many 800, 900 years ago. So you have to have that respect and be at the most, however humble you can be. So Janapada Loka, I think that structure is not very important. I just want to break that geometry of that circle, and the radial, patterns which normally you get really bogged down by. I took the freedom. I know it is a bit of a disturbance to the existing framework, but I took that freedom to break it, to make because typically, Janapada Loka is quite a dull place, and even the exhibits, I know the kids, I don't know, somebody who has an academic interest would like it. A lot of common people don't really find it exciting. So then I thought, some of this act of making it a bit interesting, formation of spaces would help in making it a bit, interesting. At the same time, Kochi also, I thought, like the Kochi art is quite heavy, a lot of the exhibits at the Biennale. So then, maybe this, the Curio kiosk and, other facilities is where, they take a break and, try and relax a bit. So I think it could have a bit more life and, sort of, vibrancy, which is why I think, that graphics and all that became a bit, powerful as opposed to some of the other interventions. At the same time, I don't know, you can say a bit more, say pushy in those projects as opposed to others. Somewhere you just need to know the limit. Where do you stop?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. You're agreeing. I thought you would have further argument.
No, I mean, when you said that you need to know where your limit is, I didn't know what to ask after that.
Okay. No, see, I'll tell you, see, it's like, I mean, most of you, when you deal with your, relatives, your parental generation, your elder, maybe if you have elder siblings or your, relatives of your parents or your grandparents. So with each generation, there is a different way of engagement that you do, right? So you will know how much to, and somehow unknowingly you develop that, the limit, what kind of jokes can you crack with your friends, your siblings, your parents, your relatives, your grandparents. So that judgment will come eventually. I'm sure all of you are, sort of going through that, having to deal with different, systems, different thinking, different attitudes, different philosophies.
Yeah. I think this was a very relatable example. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very quick addition to that question, Sejot. And so in all these projects, what was the role of how much did the client let you be and do your thing? I mean, how much of the client's voice, is it something that you as an architect are able to have some control over, or does it just come through? I mean, it's just a conversation that we are actually seeing.
I think I should say that see, somehow I should say that I've been very lucky, that if you I think in all my projects, I think I've had the freedom, because I think most of them come to me because they have seen my previous works, or they've somebody close to them have recommended me. So I think I've had the freedom to, sort of do what I want. At the same time, I think one of the thing is that, I'm not very pushy about my identity, so I try to be very neutral. If you look at this, the focus is on the lotus pond and then the display, So what I have done is very minimal, So I think that way, I think I've managed to give that respect wherever it's required. And I think I really don't get very often controlled.
And I think there's also then that the element, because there's one thing where you probably got clients that are respectful of your autonomy and also your ability to deal with the project sensitively. But there's also perhaps some element where you are on the same page, right, with the client. I mean, like-minded in some ways, because they're able to think the way, or you think to start with itself at the beginning itself, there's some kind of sync in the way you are thinking.
Yeah.
So perhaps that really helps.
But see, I mean, at the same time, like I'll tell you. So one of the projects I've not shown here, another house we did in Baroda, it was for a professor couple. So I think she was into literature, but she's an author. So I think that's one of the most interesting discussion I ever had. I mean, she could read the social aspects of the spaces I was creating much more than I could imagine. So some people, dealing with some of the clients is even more, educative than the other way around. So that's a pleasure. Actually, frankly speaking, this client, so frankly, I don't like her artwork. This is not the kind of artwork I like to engage with. I normally have a bit more contemporary sensibilities, but I think I managed to give its due respect at the same time. Find a path to deal with it.
I think that's what it is. It's like mutual respect and being able to respect each other's place in that scheme is important. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. questions, guys?
I have another question. My question is actually very similar to Saila ma'am's questions about the client, but specific to the Shake Studio, which you showed. You've played around a lot with the scale and like the white color you have put, and like the double height and the drop down fans and everything. So like the scales feels very different from the usual residences we see. So was it like a particular request from the client?
I think I mentioned it. No, see, she's a 70-year-old artist, and even she and her husband, Ghulam Mohammad Sheikh, you should see their work. We know both are very prominent contemporary Indian. So she, though she's old, she's still working with 8 feet wide, 12 feet high canvases. So for a canvas of 12 feet high to work, so you need at least another 2 feet below and 2 feet above. So the space was 16 feet tall. So it came from that need. And then also we had to get light from north, to the north, so that which means that you have a slab wall. So the light you could get was from above the 10 feet. So that gap between the old roof on the right side and the new roof at the 16 feet, that 6 feet became the window wherein you would get a throw of north light. So the height came from purely the functional need, because her canvases were 12 feet high. So we had to accommodate that. And then, since we had 8 feet, 12 feet, 16 feet high space, so we could try and, wherever it was not essential apart from the studio. So the other support facilities like pantry and toilet and balcony, we would add another layer on top, create a library and a storage. So, so that scale of spaces really worked. It purely coming from a practical requirement. At the same time, I think we managed to, combine it quite well, as a visual, aspect also.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Because visually also it is.
Answering to.
Sir, I couldn't hear.
Tell me again. Yeah, tell me.
Yes, sir. Visually also the white color gives a different perspective.
Yeah, see, I think all of you should see her painting. Her sense of colors is something. I think she grew up in Himachal mountains. So her sense of colors, I think she has the most delicate sense of colors in the world, So then I can only be neutral as white. I don't think I could have done anything else, So trying to answer your first question another level, a lot of your requirement is very practical, brief, and your solutions are very practical. Okay, you need an extra height, you do the extra height. In some areas you need less height, you do less height. So at the same time, all these solutions can have another realm, another realm of your philosophy, politics, aesthetic sensibility, all that plays subconsciously, So one is this practicality of spatial requirement, materiality or material limitations, technological limitation or opportunity or economy, all that playing and you're making decisions. At the same time, back of your mind, a lot of subconsciously, a lot of other factors which shapes you, your philosophy, your politics, your aesthetic sensibility, your concerns, all that is also parallelly acting and helping you to arrive at these decisions. So it may not be apparent, but both are connected.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So I have a question. It's quite general to adaptive reuse. So what I understand from adaptive reuse is that we looked at a structure or a space that had been used a certain way, and we're trying to redevelop it to suit the existing context and existing time frame. Yeah, so from the point of view of where we're headed with our urban design studio, we are sort of looking at different sites, like the flower market, for example. We're trying to redevelop it to suit and try to give it a function to suit the existing scenario.
Yeah.
So I think we, like as a group, I think I can talk for everyone that we're kind of stuck with deciding what function to give. Like in the case of a real life scenario, there's a client who wants to redevelop it a certain way. So there's a slightly more, we know where we're headed. So we know the function, and hence we start thinking of designing spaces a certain way. So how exactly do we decide what? Yeah.
I mean, see, there are two ways to look at it. One, you can look at it as a block. You don't know what to do. There is nobody else telling you. That's one way of looking at it, which is the tone of your question. So another way of looking at it, there is nobody else. I can do whatever I want. So that's another way of looking at it. So
right. I mean, yes, sir.
So then you imagine it from that perspective. What has that been? If you really want to answer some of your deeper questions, what has that been haunting you, and do you want to address that through your project, or things that you like to engage with your various other things? More pleasant, interesting things. Do you want to deal with that set of programs? So you could do that, or you want to deal with the concerns of the people around. So you could take that, or you want to deal with concerns of the faculty. You can do that. Different options. So ultimately, it's nice that they have given you the freedom. No, you choose what politics do you want to deal with. What philosophy do you want to deal with. So,
but in a place,
take an opportunity. Huh?
Yeah, true. But like in a place like Gandhi Bazaar, for example, the footfall of people is already high. So whatever we add, there is going to be an extra addition of people that are going to come.
I don't know. So that may not bother you. No? So now, imagine, you could do a program which is highly, important. So, maybe another 1,000 more people will come there because of your program. But, just because you're bringing another 1,000 more people, I don't think you should worry that, okay, it is going to crowd the place even more. But if that program is useful, you should run it. So I don't think, that should be the criteria. I mean, if you want, you can take that as a criteria. You say that, okay, since there is already a crowd, I will do a place wherein nobody comes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other extreme, no?
Right.
I will do a hub, I don't know, maybe a server room for the entire Bangalore because it's already crowded. I want to do something which nobody comes there. So, I mean, if you want that, crowd as a criteria, so you could either take, I will add more to the crowd, or I will go with zero crowd. So if you want it, so, I mean, it's up to you whether, what do you want to take as a criteria.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Sijo, I have a couple of questions. So,
yeah.
I think I have asked one of these questions before also. So there is a very distinct identity to the projects that you've done in terms of the client and in terms of how you work them out also. Like, for instance, in terms of the client, if you look at it, you're working with a lot of literature people, people who are associated with arts, and in terms of handling the project, it looks as if you yourself, being an artist, have handled it with a certain sensibility, basically, which is very different from what another architect would do. And also in your case, I mean, you're one of the few faculties in RVCA who's also an artist and also a designer in the same sense. So how do you, like, when you, I mean, especially yourself being an artist, working with an artist, what is that experience? How do you, like, actually negate? I mean, as an artist, you will have a certain ego, you will want to do certain things. So would you look at the project as an art, as an artwork, or how do you have that conversation with the artist or the poet or whomsoever you're working with?
I think, I mean, these identities are a bit problematic, so I think, I don't think I assume myself to be an architect or an artist. So when I cook, I'm a cook. When I'm cleaning the floor, I'm doing the cleaning. So I don't know whether I should assume any roles at all. So I don't assume.
You're pretty clear.
Huh?
You're pretty clear, right?
Yeah. I think essentially, it is to be a human. And other things are very technical in a way. I mean, if you're driving a car, you're a driver. And if you enjoy owning one, you're just an owner. You're not enjoying the car. The driver is the one who enjoys. So, see, everything has a certain technical task to complete. If you're an architect, you need to put things together, as objectively as possible, And if you're an I don't like to call myself an artist.
I think your simplicity has a very high spiritual meaning to it, but the way you told it, it's like a very normal thing that you're talking about.
I think I
just relate.
don't agree with you.
How much of background I think homework is required is something I would think would be very enlightening for our students also, because that's
right
one
now,
thing.
See, homework right now I do is on my singing. I can't sing for nuts, so I have to really do a lot of homework to be able to, sound somewhat okay.
You sing? That's so cool. Next time
I
you have
can't
to sing
sing.
for us.
I can't sing, but I'm putting a lot of homework there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No. It's an important question. Yeah.
Yeah. See, it is like when you learn something, like when you learn to walk, how much homework did you do? And when you've learned, you don't have to do any homework. You can go and straight away run, right? So it is similar to that. Till you get a point of comfort, you can just go there and then be yourself. Till then you have to do a lot of homework. But even otherwise also, so if you look at, say sportsmen, so they have gathered all the skill, but, still they train, so probably they train more than they play. They maybe train 6 hours a day and they play 1 hour as a competitive game. So similar to that, even architecture, I don't think any moment, whether out of 24 hours, whether you're sleeping or, not, I'm sure always your mind is working, So in that sense, I don't know whether you can compartmentalize how much homework you're doing. So anything that you understand of the, your life and what you see, material, technique is all, part of your learning. And then as much as you learn, understand, it reflects in your work.
No,
So
I
think
complete that. Yeah.
It's a constant process, so it is something which it's part of you, it's not something which you can, so all the time your mind is active.
And you have to, I think, and as you also said, part of it, like the athlete's example, you really need to it's being disciplined in certain ways, so that being with discipline in terms of being open to new things and practicing also. I think unless you kind of keep your mind working.
See, I mean, the idea of, so you said, keeping your mind open to new things, how do you define new and old? So I guess, I mean, the moment of definition of new is coming because you've defined what is you, what is life. So if you leave it open, there is no definition of old and new. You're all the time, just being open and trying to respond to, life around, people around, things around, your own mind around, So it's the ongoing evolution. At no point in the moment you start defining, and then saying, this is it, this is my approach, this is what I do, that's the end of it.
Not to have preconceived ideas or closing. I mean, in a way, again, I'm going back to open and close, but.
Yeah, you're assuming, you're assuming something at least, but the moment you start assuming, so certain, I mean, a great level of unassumingness is required to approach life. I mean, let alone architecture.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. So I guess because that's one question, it is related to the studio also, in the sense that when there's a lot of assumptions that happen, and yeah, it's part of it, as Icho is saying, is to unassume and go with see with where your project takes you. So you don't really go in thinking this is how it should be, or this is what I want for it, because this is what I think that place is. It's about, as he said, he's put it better than I could, so I will not. And I think then it'll become more effortless. You're arriving on a program or whatever it is.
So initially, to have that comfort of operating at that level, you'll have to maybe put in a lot of effort. But eventually, it builds on you. It builds on you, and then you're naturally able to respond to it and then be yourself.